Alrighty, welcome to a Flesh and Blood box opening video. Well, deck opening video. We've got some Blitz decks. We're going to take a look today at the two Shadow Blitz decks here. We've got Levia and Chain. So Levia, we'll be cracking her open first. She's a Shadow Brute. So one of the cool things about Flesh and Blood and about Monarch in particular, the latest set, is instead of just having heroes that are, say, well, Brute or Guardian or Runeblade, anything like that, now they have an additional aspect, which is shadow or light. So what that means is that Levia is going to get to play Brute cards and shadow cards, and in some cases, shadow Brute cards. So you get to end up in a spot where there's more subdivision of spells and powers and stuff, so you can end up in a more flexible deck building space. So taking a look at Levia, so this is our hero. If a card with 6 or more strength has been put into your banish zone this turn, cards you own lose blood debt during the end phase. So what that does is blood debt is a mechanic that's on shadow cards, which says if at the beginning of your end phase, if it's in your banish zone, you end up losing 1 health. And so what Levia does is she lets you stack up cards with blood debt, but then when you exile or when you banish a strong attack with her, you end up not actually taking the extra blood debt damage. And that's pretty strong because there's a lot of cards that pay you off for having cards in the blood debt area, in their banish zone, or cards that are very powerful, but as part of the cost, they get banished and they start, chipping away at you. And Levia is a way to kind of get around that. So expect to combine Levia with some good cards that both have high attack and also have blood debt. We also have a mentor, so Lady Barthamont. So you can only have her in your deck if your hero's young, which is if you're playing Blitz. These are Blitz decks, of course. And Levia is young, this version. And the young heroes have, 20 instead of 40 starting health in general. Obviously, some exceptions, Kano has less health. And what this does is it kind of gives you another kind of thing that stays in play, accumulates value. Lady Barthamont has three armor and when you says when you play an attack card, banish the top card of your deck. If the banished card has 6 or more attack, the attack gains dominate, and put a lesson counter on Barthamont. Then if there are 2 or more lesson counters on Barthamont, banish her, search your deck for a specialization card, put it face up into your arsenal and shuffle your deck. And what that means is basically when you play an attack, if the top card of your deck has 6 or more attack, which, if you're playing Levia, you're going to have a lot of that. She gets a counter on the second one, you get to go get your Levia specialization card, or whichever hero you're playing with, though. This deck, of course, it's Levia. So Lady Barthamont is a pretty good addition to the deck and a good way to kind of get value out of playing these high strength attacks and end up in a spot where you get some good value. Let's go find the Levia specialization card here. All right, here we go. Soul Harvest. So it's a 6 cost attack, shadow action attack. It pitches for 3, and what this does is, let's take a look here. There we go. What this does is you can only have it if your hero's Levia. As an additional cost to play it, banish 6 cards from your graveyard. It gets +1 attack for each card with blood debt banished this way. So here, when you look at this, you end up in a spot where when you play this, you banish 6 cards, and if they're cards with blood debt, you're going to be setting yourself to take a ton of damage. But of course, Levia, her special power, her hero power, does stop that from happening. And when Soul Harvest hits a hero, banish all cards from their soul, which is something that light heroes have. They accumulate cards on their soul, which gives them value, and they lose a health equal number of cards banished this way. So Soul Harvest, very fitting name, basically is this huge attack. It costs 6. You get to whack them for 6 plus maybe like 3 or 4 or more. And then also if they're a light hero, you can basically almost one-shot them. So very, very strong, and definitely gives Levia a pretty potent finisher. Again, it costs 6, so you're not gonna play it very easily. But because of Lady Barthamont, you have an additional way to find it. She's got a ton of 6 strength attacks here. Smash with Big Tree, 2 cost 7, deal 7. A couple versions of that. You've got a Hungering Slaughter Beast. As an additional cost to play Hungering Slaughter Beast, banish 3 random cards from your graveyard. So it's a 2 cost 6 power attack. So as an additional cost, banishing 3 cards. Again, this stacks up the blood debt cards, and it itself has blood debt. Could also pitch it for 2, but there's red, yellow, and blue's Hungering Slaughter Beast, it looks like. So basically what Levia is going to end up doing, what this Blitz deck is going to end up doing, is attacking your opponent with a lot of strong attacks, setting up a Soul Harvest, and using Levia to kind of get around the Blood Debt drawback. Because most of the cards in this deck, Blood Debt's just a straight up drawback on them. It helps balance how strong they are, but as a result, you're going to need Levia's power to be on most turns. Otherwise, you're going to take a lot of extra damage. Let's take a look at the items here. She's got a Ravenous Meat Axe. That's quite the name. It's a brute 2-handed axe, and it attacks for it takes 2 resource points to attack, and it's a once per turn action, so it takes your action point as well. It attacks for 3, but whenever you attack with Ravenous Meat Axe, draw a card and then discard a random card. If a card with 6 or more attack is discarded this way, Ravenous Meat Axe gets +2 strength until end of turn. So basically, again, if you discard a 6, this is going to be attacking for 5. Plus, it lets you draw a card and then discard a random card, which doesn't sound like it's good necessarily, but if your hand is bad, it's good. And if your hand is good, it's bad. So it kind of depends on the strength of your hand. But, you know, you get to sequence your cards however you want in Flesh and Blood, and that's a big part of the skill. So what you should do with the Ravenous Meat Axe, besides say the name Ravenous Meat Axe as many times as possible, is try to sequence it so that you play your good cards and then attack when your hand's kind of poor, and it helps improve your hand on average. The head equipment is Ebb and Fold. It's a shadow equipment, so only shadow heroes can play it. It doesn't provide any intrinsic armor, but as an instant, you can pay 1 resource point and destroy it. Banish a card from your hand. If it's a shadow card, draw a card. So it's a way to put a card in your banish zone. Also, it can trigger Levia. Like you get the option to always just banish a card that has a 6 strength, and then you go ahead and trigger Levia. And then it has Spell Void 2, which says, if your hero would be dealt arcane damage, you may destroy Ebb and Fold instead if you do prevent 2 arcane damage. So it's a new take on Arcane Barrier. Spell Void is a 1-shot, but it's usually a higher number. Her cloak is Spellfray Cloak. It's a generic equipment. It has Spell Void 1, and so you can sack it to prevent 1 point of arcane damage, and otherwise doesn't provide anything. And then Goliath Gauntlet, which we've seen, this isn't a new card. It lets you give your next attack +2 strength and go again. And then Hooves of the Shadow Beast. This is the leg equipment here. This is 1 armor, and whenever a card with 6 or more strength is put into your banish zone, you may destroy Hooves of the Shadow Beast if you do gain an action point. And if it is battle worn, so you put a -1 counter on it if you defend with it, but it doesn't get destroyed, which is key. So basically, this lets you prevent 1 point of damage, so it's and stick around, solid piece of legwork there. And then this lets you destroy, at some point you're going to be able to destroy this to gain an action point. So you're able to, you're going to put a lot of your high attack cards into your banish zone. So pretty easy to get an action point out of this. Excited to play with the Levia deck, and we'll take a look at Chain next. So interesting decks, and these Blitz decks, they look pretty sweet. One of the things about these Blitz decks, these Blitz Precon decks, is they tend to be fairly competitive. You'd want to make some adjustments to it to really compete with like the highest tier of decks, but from playing with these earlier, you do end up in a spot where you can actually put up a pretty good fight. So they're definitely not weak, and something I'd recommend checking out.